You're listening to the Exploding Worship Arts Podcast with Tamika Hall, episode number 3. You tuned into the Tamika Hall Radio Show. Are you ready for the show, the Tamika Hall Show? You tuned into the Tamika Hall Radio Show. Are you ready for the show, the Tamika Hall Show? You tuned into the Tamika Hall Radio Show. If you're ready, here we go. We hope you enjoy the show.
I am really excited about tonight's teleseminar. As you know, the Tamika Hall Radio Show has shifted just a little bit, and we're moving from simply being a show that just provides you with interviews to actually connecting you with people, with movers and shakers in the industry that can help you to strengthen your own performing arts ministries, to help you strengthen yourself as an artist. And I'm really excited about who we have on the show tonight. Tonight I have a co-host. Now, you know, I love being able to co-host. There's very few people in this world that can hang with me, and the fact that I just talk a whole lot, because when I get excited, as you know, I always get excited. I always need somebody that's able to just flow with me. And so I'm really excited to be able to introduce to you my very best friend, T. Tanel Harris. T, how are you doing on this evening?
I am so excellent and glad to be on the teleseminar with you tonight, Tamika.
Okay, so I just want to make sure, are you ready to hang with your bestie on the air and to try to provide some really great information to our listeners? I just want to know if you're ready, because
I'm so ready.
I usually keep you on your toes.
I'm more ready than the Dallas Cowboys to go take on the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm ready.
Wow. So thank you very much for that. For all of my football fans out there that don't like the Cowboys, you just totally alienated everyone. So thanks a lot, Steve. Thanks a lot.
Yay.
But well, for those that are tuned in and you're listening, whether you're listening to the live recording or you're coming back later and you're listening to this as a podcast, I want to just tell you a little bit about my best friend. T is not only is she an active preacher, she's an elder, but she's also an amazing musician. She's an amazing musician, and so we've been able to connect via the arts, and that's really how our friendship blossomed, was because of music ministry. And, you know, T is like most of you musicians out there. You guys never really understand just how brilliant you are as a musician. And I tell her all the time that she's just awesome. And not only is she just awesome in terms of her actual gifting, but again, the anointing that rests on her life is just an amazing gift that God has given to her. So, T, I'm really excited that you're here to be able to co-host and to really take a lot of my listeners, a lot of the readers of TamikaHall.net, really into the world of the music industry. And I'm excited because you actually brought us tonight's musical expert. So thank you very much for just being here on this evening.
Thank you so much. You're very welcome, and I'm glad that I'm able to bring some insight to the show, and I'm definitely glad for our very special guest that will be with us on tonight. And I know he's going to be able to bless the listeners and give some great insight for the music industry. So this is definitely an awesome treat tonight.
Absolutely. And we're speaking about none other than Dr. Kenneth Love. That's right, everybody. I said Dr. Kenneth Love. So we have somebody on here who has some true credentials behind them. And we're actually going to bring Dr. Love on the air, and he's going to tell us a little bit about his background. But I can tell you right now that not only does this brother have expertise and skill, but he has international reach. He has traveled and performed with several bands, not only throughout Texas, but throughout Germany. He writes music and all of those great things. And so not only is he here speaking to us as a musician, but he's going to be talking to us from a public relations standpoint, because he is also one of the principal founders of One Way Public Relations. And so he's going to be talking to us really about how we can really break into the music industry as a Christian artist. Now, if you're listening to this, really this is information that you can utilize whether you're a Christian artist or any other type of artist, whatever your genre of music is, but you'll be able to utilize this and put it forth into your career and really be able to move forward. So with that said, Dr. Love, thank you so much for joining the Tamika Hall Radio Show with T. Harris tonight. Thank you so much for being here, sir.
Sure, I'm very glad to be here. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, I'm really excited that you are just taking this opportunity to be able to talk to our listeners, because I know that you have a wealth of knowledge that you can give to them. I mean, I'll be honest with you and very open with everyone that's listening. For me, I am a performer, but breaking into the actual music industry as a gospel artist is something that's very new to me, but it's territory that I'm finally starting to dip my toe into. And so this is very timely that you are here. And so I'm going to be learning right along with my listeners, right along with them. So, Dr. Love, if you wouldn't mind, just, I gave a very brief bio and synopsis of who you are, but I always think that my guests do better when they do it themselves. Can you please just tell the listeners just a little bit about who you are?
Well, I happen to be both a musician, recording artist, as well as worked on the business side of the music industry. And my background basically includes my failure to be able to blow a little miniature trumpet in the March of Dimes parade when I was 4 years old. I'm still actively seeking proper therapy and psychiatry for that to this day. The thing that happened was I was given to make a long story short, I was given a little horn to blow in the March of Dimes parade, and I couldn't get a note out. And they took the horn away, gave it to another little boy, and the first instrument, ironically, that I picked up in the 6th grade when I first had the opportunity to join in band was a trumpet. And I played the trumpet throughout, won awards through high school, sat first chair, went on to college and majored in trumpet, and came out and started doing some things. Played it actually in the Army, too. While I was in the Army, I was in the Army band for a while. And one thing led to another. Ended up playing keyboards and bass guitar along the way, and going ahead, learning how to write. And I enjoyed the music, the business of it so much. I actually had a deal with an MCA records producer who suddenly passed away, and I was unable to get my record completed by him, so I then went into my own independent music career, and the rest is pretty much history. I've been doing that for so long, and I like the business so much that I spent 20 years from 1990 to 2010 representing other artists worldwide, both international clients from overseas as well as promoting and publicizing music overseas as well.
Nice. And, the funny thing is I was going to ask you, with you traveling in Germany, I was going to ask if you were in the military, because I am a military brat myself. So I spent about 4 years living in Germany when my father was over there for a portion of time.
Wow, yeah. In fact, I was stationed. That's where I was stationed in Germany, and I played. We had a little band over there for some time while I was over. I was only over there for a couple of years, but we did have a band together, and I pretty much had bands pretty much everywhere I've gone to some degree, or else participating in them or led them. But I was basically stationed in Augsburg and Swabsattel. I'm sure you're familiar with Augsburg, at least the name of it.
Yes. I lived in Mannheim and Bad Kreuznach, and I used to travel I used to travel to Ramstein and Kaiserslautern all the time. So I'm familiar.
Yeah, that's nice. I've been to both of those towns, K-Town, as they call Kaiserslautern, and Mannheim. Munich, and I enjoyed it over there. I can't wait to get back over there and do some touring.
Nice.
That is awesome thing. I actually myself dabbled in the Army National Guard band when I started out my career. It didn't last very long, but it definitely was an experience to be a part of the military. So it sounds like we all have a little bit of military background tonight, which is an excellent thing. Well, why don't I ask you this, Dr. Love? Could you tell the listeners, tell us about your company, about One Way Public Relations? Like, what exactly entails your company?
Well, One Way Public Relations is actually an extension of what I've done for, as I said, those past 20 years. I'm semi-retired right now. I only take certain projects on. But for 20 years, from 1990 to 2010, as I said, I served as a promoter and a publicist. And One Way PR is just a new version of that service. And basically, but it also at the same time houses just about everything about me, including, I have two sites. One is for my music site, KennyLoveJazz.com, and this one is the One Way PR, where we actually provide services for other artists. And basically, I have my client testimonials over there, so anyone who would possibly be interested can go over there and actually see client testimonials and what people have said about me and my results for their projects. We provide all types of radio ads. We can create radio ads, video ads. I also have, as I said, I have a conglomerate of everything I do over there, including my fiction writing. I have links to my fiction writings, and I'm actually in the process of shopping 2 science fiction television series right now as well. And I have something over there for musicians to help their careers, and writers to help their careers, writers being other fiction writers and nonfiction writers. So, it's just a conglomerate of things, almost a nutshell of where people can go and, if they're in the arts, and find something that they can utilize to benefit their careers.
Wow, that's awesome.
That's awesome.
And, I really love the fact that the one-way public relations is so eclectic, because I think a lot of times when we are, when we have an arts background, whether we're singers, dancers, actors, sometimes we think that we are supposed to only be one-dimensional. And I think that what you're proving here is that it's necessary really to branch. I mean, really, it sounds to me like what one-way public relations does is it helps people to actually create a brand around themselves. And so, I mean, with your having the 20 years of experience in the industry, I mean, for today, what do you think it takes to actually create a brand for an artist?
Well, it actually creates a little bit of everything. You're probably familiar with the term, having been on the internet for a while. It's been thrown around for a number of years. Multiple streams of income. Well, what you also have to have, it's almost a necessity. It used to be a luxury, but today everything is so unsure and uncertain from the arts themselves to where they stand from one day to the next. You have to become multidimensional and multitasking. And I know that's a phrase been tossed around for a few years too, but it is a dire necessity today to be multitasking and multidimensional and multifocused. In order to, and it's almost like the old money market thing, fund thing, whereas, the whole reason for money market funds were to counterbalance each other. In case one was going down, the other one was coming up, and so you pretty much stayed at a positive balance. And that is what you're doing, with creating your brand. To create your brand, you have to do several different things. You can't just do one thing, as you said. You have to focus on a lot of different areas, and so many areas are connected and interconnected. So one thing leads to another, and oftentimes one thing inspires further ideas. So it's all for the greater good.
I like what you just said in terms of talking about creating the multiple streams of income, because you're right. I mean, it's necessary. And really, we're in this age where everything is really digital. We're really at a time where the independent artists, the independent authors, all the independents are really being able to find a niche, and really to secure themselves in the industry, regardless of what the industry may be. And so it is important to have those multiple streams of income, whether you are singing. You don't want to just be a singer. It makes sense to be a songwriter as well. So I love the fact that you did bring up that it is important to be multifaceted, and really, because I would think that it helps to increase longevity. I mean, is that what you would say? Because you've had 20 years of experience. I mean, do you feel like your 20 years has come?
It does increase longevity, but I'll tell you what happened with me. I started out just a musician, as most musicians do, but I got so interested in so many other facets, and I didn't want to be, for lack of a better knowledge or phrase, ignorant of the process and what went on with my career, because too many artists, not just musicians, but actual writers and artists, any creative artists, pretty much try to find either a manager or an agent and leave that all in their hands. Well, if you don't know what's going on with your career, and if anything ever happens to that source that does, then you're pretty much out in the cold as far as where you are with your career. So it behooves you to at least get a general knowledge of how things should work or are supposed to work. And for me, I just had so many interests. It went from, for instance, the music, the writing actually was derived from the fact that I started writing music articles based on my experience as an independent artist. And that's how I started helping. I started working with writing for about over 100 publications. I ended up writing for over 100 publications, print and online, to help musicians. So it just helped me. It helped them. They were very inspired by it. It kept me on, and then that gravitated into me trying to go to the next level of fiction writing. So I've just been so interested in so many different facets of the creative arts, even videography, acting, modeling, that type of thing. So, and it's not to put myself off as an ego hound or anything. It's just where my interests tend to lie. I'm just so interested in so many facets of the art.
I love the fact that you are really validating something. I've always been told that I do too much. I've always been told that I want to learn, too many different things. And so really it feels good to hear that in some ways you kind of need to know a little bit of everything so that, for lack of a better term, you're not bamboozled in the whole process. So, I love the fact that you are talking about that. I know that T and I today, we were speaking earlier about the different books that you've written. T, did you have a question for Dr. Love about that?
Yes, I really wanted to know, what inspired you to write the material that you have written, and, how far do you want to take it? I heard you mention earlier about, shopping your independent TV series around and everything, and what really got you to that point where did it start with a book and then it went to taking it to a television series, or was it just something completely separate?
Well, I'll tell you how that kind of transpired. As I said, I was doing a lot of article writing, and I've just gotten back into that actually too after a number of years. I've been out of that for about 5 to 10 years maybe. But here's what happened. I was my worst critic. I started, as I said, I put out this first record in 1990. It was just a single. I put it out there. I went through the radio promotion on my own, getting the newspaper articles and reviews and that type of thing. But and then I started writing for these music industry trades. But it just wasn't enough. I wanted to become that American fiction writer, right? So it was a challenge to me to find out if I could create a story that held people's interest for, say, the proverbial 300-something odd pages. And I ended up doing that, and actually I created my first novel, which is called Millennium Eve. It's a science fiction novel. It's set in the future. Well, it was in the future. Now that's the past now because it dealt with the first, it was about to change over in the turnover of the century from 1999 to 2000. But anyway, it satisfied my curiosity of being able to write a fiction story with complete characters, just fictional characters made up, and to see if the storyline could be moved along and that type of thing. And I actually sort of surprised myself, and it satisfied myself at the same time. But what happened with that is I went from that to writing stage plays. I've got a play out now called Rocking Chairs. It's fairly humorous. It's about senior citizens sitting in a nursing home, just really talking. And then I've got a new play coming out called Church House Blues. And let me tell you, this play, I can't wait to get it out because it is about everything we've ever seen. I don't know if you're Baptist or not, but I was for many years. I kind of go to non-denominational churches now, but everything you've ever seen go down bad in a Baptist church is in this play. So surprises and no surprises. But yes, I wanted to get off into different mediums, and so right now, as I said, I'm shopping 2 television sci-fi series. One's called The Maid, and it's about a female assassin and then there's the one. My ancestor is also part Choctaw Indian, and I'm shopping one called Nightbow, and he's sort of a character who was also in the army and was kicked out, and he becomes this Night Avenger. So it's very interesting working in these different formats, and it's challenging and always refreshing.
Dr. Love, I'm really enjoying just, you've really broken down the different multiple streams of income and just the fact of how multifaceted you are. So I just kind of want to summarize for those that are tuned in and listening. If you've been listening to Dr. Love, not only is he a musician, but he is a songwriter. He composes music. He's worked as a consultant. He's worked with a band. He's written books. He is writing articles and also doing stage plays and screenplays. So if you're saying to yourself, I'm only supposed to do just one thing, Dr. Love is here showing us that, number one, not only is it completely okay for you to do more than one thing, but it sometimes is necessary just to really increase the longevity of your career for you to be able to learn how to do more than one thing and to really hone in on your creativity. And Dr. Love, I want to move back toward you're giving us those nuggets of wisdom when it comes to the music industry. You know, with your having 20 years in the industry, I'd love for you to just tell us, what do you think it takes to be successful in the industry of today?
Well, it takes two major things, and those are tenacity and consistency. And tenacity is just that get up, pulling yourself up not only by your bootstraps, but by the heels and soles of your shoes, and getting up there and taking it on when you can't get anybody else to do it. And that only comes, that can only successfully come from constantly educating, self-education, and informatizing yourself. Learning all you can learn and doing it consistently, you know, not doing it here for a week and dropping out for 3 weeks. You've got to do this almost every day. And so it's also the continuing adaptation and adoption of new marketing, promotion, publicity, education, and information. You've just got to keep digging. And that's where a lot of artists tend to drop the ball. Artists by nature are pretty much creators, and that, you know, it's like that old right brain, left brain thing. Well, we only got, I can't remember which side is the art. You know, I can't remember which side is the arts, but it's pretty much, most of us tend to stay on that art side because I always turn this up, in tune this to kind of like a meal that you cook versus a meal someone else cooked for you and you ate. It's almost like the other person's meal always tasted better. And so it's like, you had to do all the work. You know, you had to do the tasting, you had to do the sampling and all that. So by the time you get to the meal, it's like, yeah, okay, I know it'll keep me alive, but it really doesn't taste as best, you know. But that is what we have to do. Like I said, it's no longer a luxury; it's a necessity. You absolutely must do this for just from a competitive standpoint alone, let alone surviving in this industry today.
So, I mean, with you saying that, what is the hardest part about being an independent musician? Or, I mean, is there really a difference between independent versus, you know, having a record label behind you?
Well, it is more difficult because you're having to take on all those hats, for lack of a better phrase, that the record labels did wear for you. But the interesting thing, here's the great thing about this, you don't have to sell 1 billion records, more or less realistically 1 million records today, and because most of the money that came in to record labels, and there are few record labels left today, industry is just torn down, and it has become really an independent artist's existence. But most of all those millions, for the reasons of those millions of sales, most of the artists weren't getting most of that money in the first place. They were, you know, for the money that was coming in, they saw very little of it for their creative projects. What is so beautiful today is you don't have to sell 1 million records to make a decent income for survival. You can sell as few as 20 to 30,000 records in a year and pretty much live a decent living. In a lot of cases, far better than you could if you were signed to a major label. So today, artists and particularly Christian artists and gospel artists actually have a better foot in the business door of the music industry because you can work with your churches. Your church start out with your church. You can utilize your church members and request them to give you their honest feedback on your projects and your songs that you're putting together before you ever release those. They will give you most times I would think they would give you their honest opinion. They also have connections outside of the church because Huh?
I said, yes, they will. The church will let you know.
Yeah, they'll let you know for sure. Yeah, and what you need to take out of there, too. But the thing is, they're going to be very honest and forthright with you about it. They also have connections outside of the church. This can be the start. Back to the question on branding. This can be the start of your branding on a very positive and fast way of getting your brand out there.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Because I actually was going to ask you if you felt that Christian artists need to approach the industry differently than secular artists. And so right there, that's something really interesting about the fact that, like you said, I mean, we have an advantage that we have an audience, a captive audience a lot of times, which is just the church and just trying to get on the circuit of the church. But do you feel like there are any other ways that Christian artists should approach the industry differently than, someone breaking into the secular realm?
Well, as opposed to doing something different, what I will say is the beauty of the Christian and gospel markets is that it's very insulated and it's very supportive. It's very supportive and it's insulated. You pretty much don't have to wonder. You have what I want to suggest to Christian artists today and gospel artists is that to create. I'm also suggesting this to secular artists, but this is a little different. It's the same but a different path. Is for Christian artists to start a local co-op, 3 to 5 Christian bands, and start doing putting it together and working with churches and create a church network and different points of such as churches as sources, so that they can create a touring network. Now that can be locally, that can be regionally, that can be nationally. And what you do is you set yourself up, and you pretty much what you're doing is creating a package of Christian bands, of gospel bands, and you get together and you figure out your promotion and your publicity, and you work with the churches. And this can be a great ongoing thing throughout year in and year out. And this is a great way to build up fans really, really fast and in a large number. You just put together a co-op and approach churches with your co-op and let them know what your mission is. And that should work out just fine. That's one of the great ways that Christian artists can work together as far as networking.
That makes a lot of sense. And, I think that oftentimes, well, I'll just say in the African-American community, because I'm not going to necessarily put on just, the Christian community or what have you, but in the African-American community, a lot of times we don't help each other. There's a research out there that, shows how, our dollar barely turns over within our own community. So having said that, when we go into the gospel industry, in some ways you don't see that either. Just the thought of putting together a network, a touring network, and everybody working together to help promote and market each other, it makes so much sense. I don't know why more people haven't thought about it. That's incredible. I mean, T, what do you think about that? You actually are kind of doing something like that similar this Saturday, T. So is this something that you've thought about also, kind of creating a touring network?
I think that it is definitely a good thing to do. With mentioning Dr. Love, I actually am promoting a gospel concert with a variety of different artists, artists in ministry, all the way from traditional gospel singing quartet to the more contemporary, high energy type of young people, and then as well as the liturgical dance in my ministry. It's something that we definitely need to embark on, but it really takes a group of people to network, to work together, to be able to make these different venues happen. It's very, difficult to do it on your own. So, to me, to answer that question, it's really essential, and it's definitely necessary. Like, they don't actually, in the industry, really, not just the gospel industry, but I've been going to different, Dr. Love, different type of venues that they've been having for, like, open mic night with a lot of spoken words. And you'll find that happening more in cafes than you actually will find people putting on promotional concerts and bringing in artists and groups to work together, unless it's somebody big in the industry like, Kirk Franklin or Mary. You don't find small local artists actually working together to put on big venues. They just don't do it. And, and I think it's necessary. in order for us to break into, and break the industry, it is necessary to work together.
Also another thing as far as the financing of this type of venture, whereas you're bringing in different levels of artistry and that type of thing in different formats of it, also consider your Christian retail businesses, both from a local standpoint all the way out to a national, and let them know, get your organization together, get it strong, and be able to present to them what you want to do and go to them. And I feel confident that a lot of them would welcome this idea and would be financially supportive. And you can bring them on as sponsors to help offset some of the costs and things that the fees that you're are likely going to run into in terms of putting on something like this. Some people are just out there waiting for something like this to come about because there's so many negative distractions in the arts and entertainment industry today. And something like this will just stick out like a sore thumb and be like a beacon in the night to them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is really, really great stuff, Dr. Love. Really great stuff. I wanted to just ask you, with everything that we've been talking about, what are some common mistakes that Christian artists make? I mean, you kind of mentioned some of them, but are there any glaring mistakes that Christian artists, whether they're new to the industry or they've been in it for a long time, that they really need to avoid?
Yeah, again, it kind of reverts back to what I said. I think it just now. Here's the thing I've seen that probably is a part of Christian artistry, because I'm seeing it in churches, and I think it's actually a detriment to churches. Churches don't, and Christians in general, I believe, don't enjoy the idea of inserting the term of business into the spiritual realm and the worship realm. But what they must understand is that my wife and I spend a lot of time addressing this, and I tell her about, in fact, of our church, a lot of times they won't let the rubber meet the road. This is where the rubber meets the road, and no matter what you want to term it, it is, to a degree, it all comes down in a certain sense at some point, and it points to business. I said, anytime you're paying a bill, it is about business if it's not in your own home. And the church has to embrace and understand that, and it's not a bad thing. So I think where a lot of, to answer your question, I think with artists, it's pretty much the same, spiritual artists. I think this may be the one detriment for them, is not being business proactive enough. And understand that this is a business. You have to, there comes a certain amount of funds that have to do whatever they have to do to make this happen. I mean, there's expenses for touring, there's expenses for travel, expenses for musicians. It comes down to that. And so you just have to embrace that part of it, because you will one way or another. And regardless of what you term it, it still comes down to the same. And I think that's where a lot of us, for a long time, there was the love gift, and the love gift kind of has gone by the wayside now, because the love gift ended up not being too loving. So in a lot of cases, so in a lot of times you were in the red when you left. The audience was satisfied, but you weren't financially. So let's just face that. So that's what I would say, is this: just put the pencil to the paper and the numbers, and start embracing a bit, even if it means taking a business course or something like that, if you're completely unknowledgeable about how to balance the book. But that is a very needed and very necessity for that.
Absolutely. I tell people all the time that there is a business side to ministry, and even though you are doing kingdom work, I mean, at the end of the day, like you just said, everything has a price tag, and so it is important to at least understand that, so that even if all you're trying to do is just break even, and then you need to understand that there is a cost that comes to everything. And it just helps us to be more realistic, and people carry themselves more professionally when they do that.
Absolutely.
Really
Absolutely.
Great nuggets of wisdom, Dr. Love. I would love for you to tell us a little bit about your music. I know that you do jazz and what have you, and I also understand that you have several CDs of your own. So before we close out tonight, I would love for you to just talk to our audience a little bit about your own work.
Well, actually, I only have one full completed CD that was done with the Case Sensitive CD back. I put out a lot of different singles, though. That's probably what you're referencing.
Okay.
I put out a lot of different singles. Actually, I had a commercial single, that first one that came out way back in '90. But the thing I'm doing now, in fact, I have a gospel jazz band, and what I'm doing. Actually, they can go on my website and watch an excerpt. I think it's about 15 minutes long from, we performed at a church here in the Dallas area, and we've got 3 songs on there, and I do write original gospel music as well. I have several songs out. One's called Zion. None of these have been recorded in the studio yet. I'm going to put those on the next project. One's called Zion. Another is called Say On, Pray On, and it's a quartet style that is done by a 10-piece band, and everybody's up jumping around and kicking over microphones and things like that. And then we've got I've got another one called He'll Be Right There For You, and that's kind of R&B-ish, but in the gospel tune. But I am looking to I'm actually starting my tour in 2014 with a big Valentine's Night concert in Tyler, Texas. And we're self-financing and producing that, and we're hoping to get a lot of people out, especially since it's Valentine's night. And we're looking very much forward to that and having some good success with that. We're actually doing about 5 major concerts throughout the year of 2014, and also some peripheral benefit jobs and things like that in between those major concert holidays.
Now, Dr. Love, you just brought up something that made me think of another question. You mentioned tour when you were talking about the Christian co-op, and now you're talking about the fact that you're also embarking on a tour. I think a lot of artists that are, new and green to this, or even those that have been in it but don't really know how to go to the next step, when they hear the word tour, they're thinking about putting on, an Israel Houghton tour, but that's not necessarily true. Is that correct? That, you can actually start a small tour within your city or what have you. When you say tour, what exactly are you talking about?
Oh, let me tell you, no, tour just means going out there playing. Just go, you can tour your city. You can tour your city all the way to touring the world. No, I don't mean you have to go out there and go, start this 850 city tour and that type of thing. Well, in fact, I'm starting out very small, and I'm actually not starting out in cities, and I'll tell you why. Based on my experience, cities such as Dallas and Houston, I've lived in both of those. Phoenix, I've lived in that one, and New York and LA and Chicago. Those cities, believe it or not, bands, and regardless of the genre, need to start considering much smaller areas. Now, I'll tell you what we're doing. We're starting out because there's so many distractions in the metropolitan cities on any given, especially on holidays. You have a much harder time. Believe it or not, you think that, okay, we've got 2-3 million people in this city and we ought to just sell out. No, that isn't necessarily the truth. In fact, you may have a more difficult time. Go to, consider places that are 2 to 3 hours removed from a city. Have triangular cities in geography, such as we're going to Tyler and Kilgore and Longview. Those cities are within 30 minutes of each other. They're much smaller. I think they're 70,000 to 80,000 each, okay? And people rarely get big events in their towns that size. I mean, humongous events. And you structure those around major holidays. And people will remember you a lot longer than they do in New York and L.A., because they can take you a dime a dozen there, So you start looking at the smaller places, but still places that are large enough to warrant enough people coming out to whatever venue that you are performing in. But those are what we have found are to be the best avenue for us as far as structuring that. And we're going to go through 2014 and pick out triangular located cities like that have a decent following, small to medium following as far as population. And just promote and publicize to the television, radio, and press, and do it like we would do it in a big city. And we think we will get a lot more. This will be our first time out trying this, but we think we'll get a lot more feedback and a lot more consistency than if we were to stay in one of the top 10 cities in America.
Mm-hmm.
That's really smart.
I'm sorry?
Go ahead,
really, no, I was saying that's really smart. Smart thinking, and that's something that, I was just talking to Tamika about. We both, being playwrights, have put on plays, and I noticed that, she put on her play in 2 different locations, more in the triangular location, and her, she had really a large following that came to the first showing in February, and then she had another showing in June, and really had a good turnout. I myself did one in the same city as her second show, and I had a decent show out. But then when I took it to a more of a metropolitan city in Delaware, which is closer to Philadelphia and Baltimore, I didn't have a great response as far as a crowd coming out. And maybe that's because I should have stuck with a smaller town venue in order to be able to make that happen.
Yeah, I just here's the benefit that I have. I also happen to come from originally a very small town, so I know the mindset of the people in small towns, and more importantly, I know how rare. For instance, I grew up in an East Texas town called Crockett, Texas, years and years and years ago, and but anyway, here's what happened. Anytime we wanted to attend a concert, pretty much we had to go to Houston or Dallas, okay? And this was like a 2 to 3 hour drive. You know, we had to almost pack a lunch, camp out, that type of thing. And so the thing about that's extra expense and added expense for people. They just, you know, the touring companies just don't consider smaller towns. They figure, hey, they're going for the exact opposite reason. We're going to hit the masses and everybody else will just be icing on the cake if they show up. The problem with that is, the good thing about doing it the way I'm doing it is that I already know how people feel about that. And if you can let people know, hey, we're bringing this big play, we're bringing this big concert to your town. You don't have to be saddled with all these expenses of trying to get to a major city to see a concert. We're coming. We're going to make an event. This is what we got going in it. We're going to have MCs, comedians, that type of thing. If you let them know ahead of time through your promotion and your publicity and get it out there in time, people will show up and they will embrace you because there's usually nothing else going on that night, you know? So that's the good thing. You almost eliminate competition there.
Absolutely. And you're right. I mean, when you tap into those really large markets, then you're having to contend with the fact that, just the mentality of, well, why am I going to? Well, let me just back up. When you go to the metropolitan area, you're paying the large prices, and so then you have to put a large ticket price. And people say, well, I don't even know who you are, so why would I pay you to come see your show? Right. Absolutely.
Right. Right, and not only that, usually if you're going to drive 2 to 3 hours away from concerts, more than likely you got a hotel expense, you've got food expense, and you certainly have gas expense. So if you're bringing it to, and it's kind of like the old million record sales versus being an independent artist and not having to sell so many. You can also consider your attendees in smaller venues and reduce your ticket prices, and hopefully within a triangular city, you'll get just the same amount of volume of people coming out that you would have in the city anyway, and even be able to make probably increase your income in your concert intake.
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of great sense. I just have one last question for you. I noticed that you said that now you have a lot of singles that you have produced and you've been putting those out. Do you find that today people are putting out more singles versus albums? I don't even know if album is the correct terminology, but do you find that people are doing more singles versus, a full project?
Yes, in fact, I've heard Beyonce and I heard one other industry, his name evades me, talk about how the album is really dead. In terms of being able to sell that as a whole project right now. That's really for posterity. And also, but it still works well as an impulse item at your concert. So it's a good thing to keep that. But one of the things that is very realizing is that album sales are really down and they're minimizing even further. And so people are right now just going with the single, particularly but I don't think that, at the same time, I don't think that applies to gospel and jazz and classical markets. But as far as the other commercial genres such as hip-hop, rap, rock, that type of thing, it is really engaging and pressing and causing those industries to just realize, and even more so, people are buying digital downloads, so in those areas. So the album is really suffering in the commercial genres. But I still, as I say, I still think that the jazz, gospel, and classical markets are still expect that, and I don't think they're coming along that fast for that. So those genre of artists have a little bit of longer leeway as far as selling that format of music.
Yes, that's very true, and it's definitely something that we both, myself as well as Tamika, have experienced with the situation of whether to put out a full album or whether to put out a single. Right now we're working on we have some projects we're working on right now that I'm co-producing for her, and we were just discussing would it be best to put out a single project rather than to put out a 6 or 8, 10 song album. And, and I was saying, I think it would be best to really, in order to get your feet wet, is to put out that single and, really start to build up a following, a crowd, and they start to really start liking, your music, and it takes your music to a whole nother level. Like, one of the groups that I've heard Dr. Love out recently in the industry, and they're kind of like almost a crossover from gospel to, it's almost borderline secular with the Walls group. It's 4 young people. They're brothers, 2 brothers and 2 sisters. And they were discovered by Kurt Franklin. And, so Kurt has taken these young people and he's produced, and they only have really one song out that they're doing right now, which is Perfect People. But that song is so catchy, and it's so, upbeat, and so, it's like a feel-good song. So they don't need to necessarily put out a big album because they're catching the attention of the audience with one song. And, and so I think that's a really, really smart way to be able to market yourself and to be able to build a following of people that want your work. And then once it's time to come out, you do a Christmas album or something like that where you're able to, really, I love this time of year with the music, especially with a lot of music that's coming out. I listen to all the types of genres of music, but I really do, I'm a person that really loves jazz music. So during this time of year, I love it because a lot of Christmas jazz albums actually come out, and it's some of the best work. I personally myself, I love Herbie. I've always loved Herbie Hancock. I've always loved his work. I've always, loved, artists that kind of fall under that cuspis, and and their music is so full. It's so full of life, and and so this has been really an excellent show with being able to express all types of business. That is not a bad thing to be well-rounded. That was, one of the things, Dr. Love, that we've always been taught as growing up in school is that you need to be well-rounded. You can't just be athletic and not have academics. You can't just be academic and don't have the extracurricular activities. And that is the same way that I look at it as in the industry, not just with music, but the whole entire industry as a whole. Music, writing, dance, literature, everything that you could possibly think of. It's good to have a lot going on, so that way it won't get boring to you. So, it's definitely what you have done over the course of 20 years has really, it's inspiring people like myself as well as Tamika and other inspiring artists that are really trying to crack into the industry, that it's definitely worth it. You've proven that tonight with just giving the information, the tools. It's worth it. It's worth following your dream and your vision. And we want to. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, that is how the industry actually began. It's, especially I remember Motown coming out with nothing but singles. You had the 45 singles, and there was the A side and the B side, and that was not only economical, but it was also a test and proving ground because it was a way that they gauged how responsive the public would be to the artist. And so only then on the success of that 45 determined whether or not there was a full album done or not. So, the singles today, now I'll tell you what you're likely to run into. I ran into it when I released my 2011 jazz project. Jazz stations refused to take a single. They didn't even want it CD5, like a EP. And so, but these were the broadcast stations. But so to counter that, I would say the more progressively minded stations are the ones that are online. Your Live 365 stations, your online, your Blog Talk radio stations. They're the progressives and they're the leaders, because now the broadcast stations, the old diehards, are sitting back now. They don't get nearly the amount of music. It used to be so difficult to get your record played on there, and now they have these pages up where they're actually begging artists to submit their MP3 files right on their website so they can consider playing them, because they don't get the music that they used to get in volumes. Because they used to take those CDs and records and go stick them in some room, and you go in there and stuff fall on your head and stuff. So I worked at several radio stations, so I have this firsthand experience. So this is a great thing. It's a great movement, and for people to embrace it.
Well, Dr. Love, this has just been an enlightening hour to just be able to pick your brain, and we're just very appreciative of that. Can you tell our listeners how they can connect with you, either online or offline, however you would prefer for them to reach out to you?
Yes, they can simply go to either or both of my websites. My music website is KennyLoveJazz.com. That's KennyLoveJazz.com. And then there is my public relations site, which is the number 1, WAYPR.com. So it's onewaypr.com. So either of those sites, actually, either one they go to, they can get to the other site. So I've got cross-promotion links on both of those sites.
And I'll make sure to have all of your contact information in the show notes. And so, everyone, I'm imploring you to go ahead and to reach out to Dr. Love. As you can tell, he's a wealth of knowledge, and it's important to have people that are experienced to be right behind you and helping you as you're trying to climb and to do better.
Dr. Love, I do appreciate you taking out the time to be on the air with us and just to basically give your wealth of knowledge. It's been an awesome evening, definitely a great time, and I do thank you very much, Tamika, for allowing this space on the Tamika Hall radio show to be able to allow us to come in and give the world a little taste of what it's like to be in the industry.
Well, thank you so very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to come on and provide some information that I have as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And for everybody that's tuned in and listening, make sure that you're always connected going to www.tamikahall.net. Make sure you check out T. Tanel Harris by going to www.thekeysproductions.com. And, of course, please make sure that you reach out to Dr. Kenneth Love by going to his website, www.kennethlovejazz.com. All this is in the show notes. Make sure that you reach out, show some love, let everybody know that you heard about them from right here. And until next time, make sure that you stay motivated, stay inspired, and stay blessed. Have a blessed night.